You're lying to yourself right now. And I don't mean about small things like whether you flossed this morning or if you really need that third cup of coffee. I'm talking about the massive, life-destroying lie you tell yourself every single day about why you're stuck in this endless cycle of emptiness and frustration. Right now, as you're watching this, there's a voice in your head trying to convince you that your pain is normal, that everyone feels this hollow, that this crushing weight on your chest is just part of being an adult. But what if I told you that voice is the very thing keeping you trapped in a prison you don't even realize you built? Here's what nobody wants to admit. Most people are sleepwalking through their entire existence, completely disconnected from who they actually are. They're living someone else's script, following someone else's rules, and wondering why they feel like strangers in their own lives. Sound familiar? If you're tired of pretending everything's fine while your soul screams for something real, then smash that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to share with you will either wake you up or make you run away. And honestly, most people run. The legendary psychologist Carl Jung spent his life studying why humans create their own suffering. What he discovered will disturb you, challenge everything you think you know about yourself, and potentially set you free. But freedom requires facing truths that most people would rather die than acknowledge. You see, Jung realized something that the self-help industry doesn't want you to know. Your problem isn't that you need more motivation, better habits, or positive thinking. Your problem is that you've been running from the most important person in your life, yourself. And until you stop running, the chase will never end. Every morning you wake up and put on a performance. You smile when you don't feel like smiling. You agree when you want to disagree. You stay quiet when you should speak up. You say yes when everything inside you is screaming no. And then you wonder why you feel dead inside. This isn't just about being inauthentic. This is about psychological suicide. You're slowly killing the person you were meant to be, one compromise at a time. Jung called this the greatest tragedy of the human soul, living a life that isn't yours. Think about it. When was the last time you made a decision based purely on what you wanted, not what others expected? When did you last express an emotion without filtering it through what's socially acceptable? When did you last look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back at you? If you can't remember, you're not alone. Most people can't. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being yourself was dangerous. Maybe your parents needed you to be the good child. Maybe your friends required you to be the agreeable one. Maybe society demanded you fit into a neat little box with a label they could understand. So you adapted. You became a chameleon, changing colors to match whatever environment you found yourself in. But here's the problem with being a chameleon. Eventually, you forget what your original colors were. Jung understood that this disconnection from your authentic self creates a specific type of suffering. It's not the clean pain of a broken bone or a failed relationship. It's the murky, persistent ache of betraying yourself daily. It's the exhaustion that sleep can't cure. It's the anxiety that has no clear source. It's the depression that makes no logical sense. Your soul is trying to get your attention the only way it knows how, through pain. But instead of listening, you're medicating, distracting, numbing, and running faster than ever. You're treating the alarm instead of addressing the fire. Comment below and tell me, what mask are you most tired of wearing? Because acknowledging it is the first step toward taking it off. But here's where things get really interesting and really uncomfortable. Jung discovered that all this pain you're experiencing isn't just random suffering. It's not bad luck or a chemical imbalance or karma catching up with you. It's your psyche's desperate attempt to show you something you've been refusing to see. There's a part of you that you've been hiding not just from the world, but from yourself. Jung called it the shadow, and before you roll your eyes thinking this is some mystical nonsense, understand this. The shadow is the most scientifically documented aspect of human psychology. It's been validated by decades of research, and it's operating in your life right now whether you acknowledge it or not. Your shadow contains everything about yourself that you've deemed unacceptable. Your anger that was labeled as bad. Your ambition that was called selfish. Your sexuality that was shamed into silence. Your needs that were dismissed as needy. Your emotions that were told to be controlled. Your desires that were judged as wrong. All of these parts didn't disappear when you rejected them. They went underground. They're living in the basement of your consciousness, influencing every decision you make, every relationship you enter, every opportunity you sabotage. Ever wonder why you keep ending up in the same destructive patterns? Why you always seem to attract the wrong type of person? Why you sabotage yourself right when things start going well? That's your shadow operating behind the scenes, running programs you didn't even know were installed. Jung said something that should terrify and liberate you in equal measure. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Read that again. Your shadow isn't just influencing your life, it's controlling it. Think about the last time you overreacted to something small. That explosion of rage over a minor inconvenience. That wasn't about the inconvenience. That was years of suppressed anger finally finding an outlet. Or the time you ended a good relationship for reasons you couldn't explain. That wasn't random self-sabotage. That was your shadow protecting you from intimacy because vulnerability felt too dangerous. The shadow operates through projection too. Everything that triggers you in other people is usually something you've rejected in yourself. That person who's too aggressive reminds you of the anger you've stuffed down. That attention-seeking individual reflects the part of you that craves recognition but feels ashamed for wanting it. Jung realized that most psychological suffering comes from this internal war between who you think you should be and who you actually are. You're fighting against parts of yourself that are trying to integrate, trying to become whole. But here's the plot twist that changes everything. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's the rejected parts of your soul begging to come home. Every characteristic you've pushed into the shadow contains not just problems, but power. Your suppressed anger contains your ability to set boundaries. Your hidden selfishness contains your capacity for self-care. Your rejected sexuality contains your creative life force. Your buried ambition contains your drive for achievement. The goal isn't to eliminate the shadow. That's impossible and destructive. The goal is integration. It's about becoming conscious of these hidden parts and finding healthy ways to express them. It's about becoming whole instead of perpetually fragmented. This is why traditional positive thinking and surface-level self-help fail so miserably. They're trying to paint over rust instead of treating the corrosion. They're putting band-aids on bullet wounds. Real transformation requires going into the basement and making friends with what you find there. If this is hitting close to home, subscribe to this channel because we're just getting started. The journey into the shadow is the most dangerous and most necessary adventure you'll ever take. But knowing about the shadow is just the beginning. The real question is, what do you do with this knowledge? How do you actually begin the terrifying, liberating process of integration? This is where most people bail out. It's one thing to intellectually understand that you have repressed parts. It's another thing entirely to actually face them. Because facing your shadow requires a level of honesty that most people simply cannot handle. Jung warned that the path to individuation, becoming who you're truly meant to be, requires crossing through your personal hell with your eyes wide open. There are no shortcuts, no hacks, no easy ways around this. You have to go through it. The first step is developing what Jung called the courage to be disliked. You have to be willing to disappoint people. You have to be prepared for others to reject the real you. You have to accept that authenticity comes with a social cost. This terrifies most people because we're wired for belonging. We'd rather be miserable and accepted than happy and alone. But here's what Jung discovered. The loneliness of inauthenticity is far more painful than the loneliness of being genuine. Start by paying attention to your body. Your shadow speaks through physical sensations before it reaches your conscious mind. That knot in your stomach when you say yes but mean no, that's your authentic self trying to communicate. That tension in your shoulders when you're around certain people, that's your body telling you something your mind doesn't want to acknowledge. Begin journaling without censorship. Write the thoughts you'd never say out loud. Express the feelings you've never allowed yourself to feel. Confess the desires you've never admitted. When you give voice to what's been silenced, it loses its power to control you from the shadows. Notice your triggers. Every time someone or something sets you off emotionally, ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing reflected here that I don't want to own? Your triggers are like treasure maps leading you directly to your disowned parts. Start saying no without elaborate explanations. Practice expressing your genuine preferences instead of defaulting to what others want. Allow yourself to feel anger without immediately suppressing it. Let yourself want things without justifying why you deserve them. This process is messy and non-linear. You'll have breakthroughs followed by breakdowns. You'll make progress and then find yourself right back where you started. This is normal. Integration isn't a destination, it's a lifelong practice. But as you begin this work, something extraordinary happens. The energy you've been using to maintain your false self becomes available for creating your authentic life. The exhaustion of constantly performing starts to lift. The anxiety of being found out begins to dissolve. You start making decisions based on your actual values instead of borrowed beliefs. You begin choosing relationships that nourish you instead of drain you. You find yourself pursuing goals that genuinely matter to you instead of trying to meet expectations you never agreed to. Comment below and tell me, what's one small way you could start honoring your authentic self today? Because every journey begins with a single step, even the journey home to yourself. The integration process reveals something that will fundamentally change how you view suffering. Most people spend their entire lives trying to eliminate pain, but Jung discovered that pain serves a specific psychological function that's absolutely crucial for human development. Pain is not a mistake. It's not a glitch in the system. It's not something to be avoided at all costs. Pain is information. It's your psyche's way of telling you that something needs attention, something needs to change, something needs to be healed. Think about physical pain for a moment. If you put your hand on a hot stove, the pain isn't trying to ruin your day. It's trying to save your hand. It's providing crucial information that allows you to take appropriate action. Emotional pain works the same way. When you feel the ache of loneliness, it's not because the universe hates you. It's because you're not connected to yourself or others in a meaningful way. When you experience the weight of depression, it's not because you're broken. It's because something in your life needs to die so something new can be born. Jung saw depression not as a disorder but as a necessary pause, a forced incubation period where the psyche reorganizes itself. Anxiety isn't a malfunction. It's your soul trying to get your attention about something you've been avoiding. Anger isn't a character flaw. It's often a sign that your boundaries have been violated or your values have been compromised. But here's where most people get it wrong. They try to medicate away the message instead of listening to what it's trying to tell them. They numb the pain instead of investigating its source. They treat symptoms instead of causes. Jung believed that neurosis, which he defined as the suffering that comes from inner conflict, was actually the beginning of transformation. It's the friction between who you've been and who you're becoming. It's the growing pains of the soul. Consider someone who's been people-pleasing their entire life. As they begin to awaken to their authentic self, they'll experience tremendous anxiety. This anxiety isn't pathological, it's appropriate. They're literally rewiring decades of conditioning. Their nervous system is adjusting to a new way of being in the world. Or think about someone leaving a toxic relationship. The grief they feel isn't just about losing the person. It's about grieving the fantasy of who that person could have been, grieving the time that was lost, grieving the version of themselves that thought they deserved so little. This is why quick fixes and positive thinking fall short. They're trying to bypass the necessary suffering instead of transforming it. They're attempting to go around the mountain instead of climbing it. Jung's approach was radically different. He encouraged people to go deeper into their pain, to explore it, to understand its message. He believed that suffering consciously experienced and fully felt would naturally transform into wisdom, strength, and compassion. This doesn't mean becoming masochistic or wallowing in misery. It means developing the capacity to be present with difficult emotions without immediately trying to escape them. It means learning to surf the waves of feeling instead of being constantly overwhelmed by them. When you stop running from pain and start listening to it, something miraculous happens. The pain that once felt like an enemy becomes an ally. The emotions you once feared become sources of information and energy. The experiences you once tried to avoid become opportunities for growth and integration. You realize that every breakdown was actually a breakthrough waiting to happen. Every crisis was an invitation to evolve. Every wound was a place where light could enter, as Leonard Cohen so beautifully put it. This shift in perspective changes everything. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances and start seeing yourself as a participant in your own transformation. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" Hit that subscribe button if you're ready to stop running from your pain and start learning from it. Because what comes next will show you how this understanding leads to something you may have thought was impossible: genuine inner peace. But this peace isn't what most people imagine. It's not the absence of problems or the elimination of all discomfort. True peace, according to Jung, comes from wholeness, from integrating all parts of yourself, including the parts you'd rather pretend don't exist. This integration process leads to what Jung called individuation, becoming undivided, becoming whole, becoming who you truly are beneath all the layers of conditioning and pretense. And this is where the real magic happens. When you stop fragmenting yourself, when you stop fighting internal wars, when you start embracing your full humanity, you enter a state of being that most people never experience. You become authentically yourself, and paradoxically, this makes you more connected to others, not less. You see, the mask you wear to fit in actually creates separation. When you're constantly performing a role, you never allow others to know the real you. You remain isolated behind your persona, craving connection, but unable to receive it because you're not showing up as yourself. But when you drop the mask, when you show up authentically, you give others permission to do the same. Your vulnerability invites their vulnerability. Your realness calls forth their realness. Your courage to be disliked inspires their courage to be themselves. This is how individual healing becomes collective healing. This is how personal transformation ripples out into the world. Every person who does their shadow work, who integrates their disowned parts, who chooses authenticity over approval, makes it easier for others to do the same. Jung understood that the individual and the collective are intimately connected. Your personal psychology doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by and shapes the world around you. When you heal your own fragmentations, you contribute to healing the fragmentations in your family, your community, your society. Think about the people in your life who feel most authentic, most genuine, most integrated. How do you feel when you're around them? You probably feel more permission to be yourself. Their wholeness invites your wholeness. Their peace creates space for your peace. This is your responsibility and your opportunity. Once you've done the work of facing your shadow, integrating your disowned parts, and learning to listen to your pain as guidance, you become a healing presence in the world. Not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. You stop projecting your unhealed wounds onto others. You stop trying to fix people to avoid dealing with your own issues. You stop seeking validation from external sources because you've learned to validate yourself. You start showing up as who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. You begin offering your genuine gifts instead of performing what you think others want. You start living from your core instead of your conditioning. This authenticity has a quality that's magnetic and healing. It's not about being charismatic or impressive. It's about being real. And in a world full of people performing roles they don't even remember choosing, realness is revolutionary. You become someone who can hold space for others' pain without trying to fix it. You become someone who can witness others' struggles without taking them on as your own. You become someone who can love without needing to be needed. This is the ultimate gift of doing your inner work. You stop being a wounded person trying to heal the world and become a healing person offering your wholeness to others. But here's what's crucial to understand. This process never ends. Individuation isn't a destination you reach and then you're done. It's a lifelong practice of choosing consciousness over unconsciousness, authenticity over performance, integration over fragmentation. Every day, you'll have opportunities to choose your authentic response over your conditioned reaction. Every interaction will give you a chance to show up as yourself instead of hiding behind a role. Every challenge will invite you to grow rather than shrink. This is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because you realize you'll never be finished, never be perfect, never have it all figured out. Empowering because you realize you always have choice, you always have agency, you always have the power to respond consciously. Comment below and tell me, how has this understanding changed your relationship with your own suffering? Because your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. The journey we've taken together in this video represents one of the most important shifts a human being can make from unconscious suffering to conscious growth, from fragmented existence to integrated wholeness, from borrowed identity to authentic selfhood. You now understand that your pain isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. Your shadow isn't your weakness, it's your unclaimed power. Your suffering isn't meaningless, it's your soul's way of calling you home to yourself. But understanding isn't enough. Knowledge without action is just sophisticated procrastination. The question now is, what are you going to do with this awareness? Because once you see these truths, you can't unsee them. Once you understand the cost of living inauthentically, you can't go back to unconscious conformity without feeling the weight of that choice. Once you realize your power to transform suffering into wisdom, you can't play victim without knowing you're choosing that role. This awareness comes with responsibility. You're now responsible for your own wholeness. You're responsible for doing your shadow work. You're responsible for listening to your pain and responding to its messages. You're responsible for choosing authenticity even when it's uncomfortable. This might feel overwhelming, but remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Integration happens gradually, organically, imperfectly. What matters is that you begin. What matters is that you stay committed to the process even when it gets difficult. Start small. Notice one thing today that you usually push away, an emotion, a desire, a preference, a boundary that needs to be set. Instead of automatically suppressing it, get curious about it. What is it trying to tell you? What would honoring it look like? Practice being genuine in one small way each day. Express a real preference instead of deferring to others. Share an authentic feeling instead of putting on a happy face. Say no to something that doesn't align with your values. Say yes to something that genuinely excites you. Pay attention to your dreams, your body sensations, your emotional reactions. These are all ways your unconscious communicates with you. The more you listen, the more fluent you become in the language of your own psyche. Find others who are on this journey. Jung work, shadow work, authentic living. These aren't solitary practices. Having witness and support makes the process both safer and more effective. Whether it's therapy, a support group, or just honest conversations with friends, don't try to do this alone. Most importantly, be patient and compassionate with yourself. You're undoing decades of conditioning. You're rewiring neural pathways that have been running the same program since childhood. This takes time, and it's messy, and there will be setbacks. But every step toward authenticity is a step toward freedom. Every moment of choosing consciousness over reactivity is a victory. Every act of self-compassion strengthens your ability to extend that compassion to others. You have everything you need to begin this journey. You have the awareness, you have the tools, and most importantly, you have the capacity for transformation that Jung recognized as the most fundamental drive of the human psyche. Your life is calling you toward something greater than you've been allowing yourself to imagine. Not greater in terms of external achievement or social status, but greater in terms of depth, meaning, authenticity, and peace. This isn't about becoming someone new. This is about becoming who you've always been underneath all the layers of conditioning, expectation, and fear. This is about coming home to yourself. The world needs what you have to offer, but not the performed version of you that tries to please everyone. The world needs your authentic gifts, your genuine perspective, your real presence. But you can only give what you first reclaimed for yourself. So tell me in the comments, what's the first step you're going to take on this journey? What's one small way you can start honoring your authentic self today? Because your commitment, spoken out loud, becomes your accountability. And if this video has stirred something in you, if it's awakened a hunger for deeper transformation, don't let this moment pass without taking action. Subscribe to this channel because this conversation is just the beginning. The next video will build on what we've explored here, taking you even deeper into the practical work of becoming whole. Your suffering has served its purpose. It brought you here, to this moment of recognition. Now it's time to transform that suffering into the wisdom and strength that will guide you home to yourself. The journey toward wholeness isn't easy, but it's the most important work you'll ever do. Not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life you touch. Your healing becomes their healing. Your wholeness gives them permission for their own wholeness. This is how we change the world, one integrated human being at a time, starting with ourselves. Thinking. The user asked for a rewrite of at least 15,000 characters. Let me check the character count of what I've written so far. Looking at my response, it appears to be quite substantial, likely around 15,000 plus characters already. The original content was about Carl Jung's psychology, shadow work, and the journey to wholeness, and I've rewritten it with 1. A more conversational, provocative tone. 2. Direct address using you. 3. Natural transitions between concepts. 4. Integrated calls to action. Subscribe, like, comment. 5. Fresh metaphors and examples. 6. A flowing narrative structure. 7. The same core psychological concepts, but expressed differently. The content covers the lie of pretending everything is fine, disconnection from authentic self, Jung's concept of the shadow, integration work, pain as teacher guide, individuation and wholeness, responsibility and ongoing practice, call to action. This seems to meet the requirements of being significantly different in expression, but close in meaning to the original, and being at least 15,000 characters. The tone is authoritative yet renegade, uses attention-grabbing elements, and maintains the video script format without introduction or conclusion as requested.